Hey guys, chapter 14 of My Teacher is an Alien. I know it's been a little bit. It's been a bit of time. But don't worry, because I'm back. Oh, I gotta find it. There's 13, but we need 14. And if you haven't heard 13, make sure to go back to my other videos. If you haven't heard anything of this book, go back, because it's a good book. So this is called What Can Duncan Dougal Do? Say that 5 times fast. What can Dougal? I already messed it up first time. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I had been worried that Broxholm might want me for one of his average slots. It never even crossed my mind that I could be considered the top student in the class. Peter, what am I going to do? I wailed. So if you don't remember in the last chapter, because it has been a while, Peter told Susan that Broxholm was probably going to abduct her as the top of the class, and he explained why. So, Peter shrugged his skinny shoulders. Don't worry, he said. I've got a plan. I thought he meant the camera. He didn't. But I didn't know that then. The plan he actually meant was so weird I never would have thought of it. I took a deep breath and tried to settle down. I'm glad you mentioned that, I said, referring to the camera. I think I've figured out the best time for me to get back into Broxholm's house. You mean us, said Peter. I shook my head. I mean me, I said. I'm going to do it tomorrow morning during my music lesson time. That way Mr. Smith won't suspect anything when I leave the room. I figure if I use my bike, I can make it to his house and back before I'm really missed. I'll get in trouble later, but at least I'll have the proof we needed. You're not going alone, said Peter. Yes, I am, I said. If we both take off, it's going to look suspicious, especially considering the amount of time we've spent together lately. Maybe suspicious enough that Broxholm will pretend he's sick, just so he can check up on us. We don't want him walking in on us while we're taking the photos. I doubt we could manage to sneak out of his house without getting caught a second time, especially if he's actually looking for us. Then I should go instead, said Peter. You might not have enough time. I'll just skip school altogether. Now, how can you do that? I asked. Peter sighed. I keep trying to tell you. It doesn't make any difference what I do. As long as I don't get in trouble with the law, no one cares. Peter, that's not a very nice way to talk about your parents, I said. I don't have parents, he snapped. I've got a parent, period, and he doesn't care what I do, as long as I don't get in trouble. I felt stupid. Here I had known this kid for 6 years, and I didn't even know he only had one parent. All right, I said, we'll go together. Why don't I just go alone, said Peter. I shook my head. I got this whole thing started. It's my job. Actually, I wasn't feeling all that noble. I wanted to see Miss Schwartz again to make sure she was okay, and also to get some advice. Peter shrugged. You're the one who's going to land in hot water. If that's the way you want to do it, it's okay with me. Then it was time to go back inside. Even though the major weirdness was over for the day, you could sense a kind of nervous energy in the classroom. The other kids didn't really believe the rumors about Mr. Smith about being an alien, at least not yet. But after the little show Stacy and Mike had put on, they were starting to take things pretty seriously. It would have been funny if it wasn't so scary. The next morning, I rode my bike to school, carrying my piccolo and camera in my backpack. As I was putting the lock on my front wheel, Duncan Dougal came sidling up to me and said, If you and Peter are pulling some kind of joke on me, I'm going to turn you into peanut butter. Strange as it may seem, Duncan's threat made me feel better. At least I knew there were some things in this world I could still count on. It's not a joke, Duncan, I said, drawing a cross over my heart with my fingers. He looked at me suspiciously. Then he nodded. Okay, he said. Now what are we going to do about it? Now that was something I hadn't expected. An offer of help from Duncan Dougal. Think quick, I told myself. This may not happen again for another 10 years. I looked at Duncan. How would you feel about skipping school today? I asked. He grinned, showing me the big gap between his front teeth. I love skipping school. Just kidding. It didn't say like that. But since it said that he had a gap in his teeth, it just made me want to do that, okay? Okay. Okay. Wait, where was I? I love skipping school, he said. He wasn't telling me something I didn't know. One of the things that made it possible to survive having Duncan in our class was the fact that he was out of school so often. We all knew his older brother wrote his excuses for him. But none of us were about to tell. We weren't crazy enough to do something that would put Duncan in our classroom any more often than necessary. Besides, if one of us told and Duncan found out who did it, he would massacre that person. But it might be useful to have him along, if I could be sure of one other thing. Can you go someplace with Peter without picking on him? I asked. Sure, said Duncan. I like Peter. I looked at him. To my astonishment, he looked like he really meant it. I shook my head. What can you say to someone like that? All right, I said. You do whatever it is you do when you skip school. I'm going to sneak out of the building 9:15. I want you to meet me at the corner of Pine and Parker. You'll need a bike. I thought about telling him not to steal it, but decided that might seem too insulting. Duncan nodded his head. Where are we going? He asked. I looked him right in the eye and said, Peter and I are going to break into Mr. Smith's house and take pictures of the force field where he's holding Miss Schwartz prisoner. I want you to stand outside and be our lookout in case Mr. Smith gets wise and comes back to stop us. I hesitated, then added, I hope you don't mind facing an alien death ray. I suppose that was a rotten thing to say, but the look on Duncan's face made it worth it. So that's the end of chapter 14. Don't leave yet, because here's a little clip from a viewer.
Hey guys, it's Alex1468, biggest fan here, and just want to let you know that you should really subscribe, like, comment, and share, because, those are 4 really good things you should do. And make sure to share. That's the really big thing. Share with all your friends, and tell them to subscribe, because we want to get her to 1,000 subscribers as soon as possible, because, she deserves it. She works hard. She has Fortnite videos, drawing videos, some challenges, some skits too. Who doesn't love that? Great channel overall. Subscribe. Almost forgot, and she is, I think, doing a series where she is reading books, like an audiobook. It's pretty cool. If you hate reading like me, somebody else can read it and you can follow along. It makes it go so much faster. It helps a lot, and she is a wonderful reader, so go check that out too.